X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Battle of the Atom. This is your weekly podcast where we rank every X-Men story from A to Z.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Adam.
You're Adam?
I'm Adam.
Wait, what? No, I'm Adam.
I'm Adam.
Wait.
Pork roll. New Jersey. Art.
Zach, just because you peeled my face off and are wearing it around like it's Silence of the Lambs doesn't mean that you're me, okay?
I'm Adam.
You're not Adam. I don't care how many times you do face waterfalls.
Guys, we're talking about an issue of comics today that rips off the famous movie Faceoff. Adam, have you seen John Woo's Faceoff?
I have seen John Woo's Faceoff in theaters when it came out. That's right. I'm old.
This just to be clear, this book was released in October of 1997, a mere couple of months after Faceoff came out.
Yeah, so
I've never watched Faceoff, just to be clear.
You've never seen. Okay, so when I say face water,
I have ridden the roller coaster multiple times.
There's a Face-Off roller coaster?
There was a Face-Off roller coaster at Paramount's Kings Island. It was a great roller coaster. It dangled your legs. They were hanging cars. You faced each other in the cars. So like two rows were looking at each other the whole time. And what it would do would pull you back up one side and go down really fast. And there was a loop and another loop. And then you go up another side. And then the front would become the back. And the back would become the front.
Oh, wow.
It is after Kings Island was purchased by the Cedar Fair Group, and they lost the Paramount licensing. Well, Paramount sold it off, and they said, use all of our movies. I believe they renamed the coaster to Invertigo.
Oh, okay.
It is still there to this very day.
So since you have not actually seen the masterpiece that is Nicolas Cage and John Travolta, quote unquote, switching faces, when I say face waterfalls, do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Okay, so the good character, who's played by John Travolta, he he has this gesture that he uses with his wife and his child, which is he puts his hand over their face and kind of like doodly-doo with his fingers, like down the front of their face. It is very, very strange, but it is one of the ways in which they realize that when the evil John Travolta, who's actually Nicolas Cage, shows up, that he is not who he says he is. And by golly, it's weird.
That's the movie that has highly experimental face transplant surgery. Right?
That is the one. If you didn't catch on, folks, not only is Face-Off part of our episode this week, but we're doing stories based on the movies. That's our theme. So break out your buttered popcorn, hold for pee breaks, and let's dive in.
Let's all go to the movies. And we're going to the movies today because Patreon supporter J.W. McCormick said that they only like X-Men comics based on major motion pictures. Here's the trick. And if you want to be like J.W. McCormick and give us a real brain teaser, you can go over to patreon.com/comicsxf, reach deep down into your hearts and your pocketbooks, and toss a couple of coins into our coffers. Here's the trick. Chris Claremont, notorious for writing stories about whatever movie he saw that weekend.
That's right.
We love him for it. They are some of the most beloved comics in X-Men canon. We have also covered nearly all of them. We're sitting through like, no, Aliens is that one. That's Terminator.
Yeah. That's Ghostbusters.
What are we still doing here? What are we trying to figure out? However, we have found some, starting with one that I didn't realize was based on a movie, and I should have. X-Men Unlimited 17 by Terry Kavanagh and Tom Lyle, where Wolverine and Sabretooth face off.
Sort of.
Cannot emphasize enough the movie had just come out.
Yeah. They do not actually switch faces, which is disappointing. However, they
They
do
don't not switch faces.
well, they psychically switch bodies. They do not. This is a White Queen Storm scenario. This is not a
Which some would argue is also a face-off.
yes. Well, so this issue begins with who we think is Wolverine busting into Warren Worthington's office and being very grouchy with him.
To be
And then-
fair, Wolverine and Angel have a long-stated hate of each other.
Yeah, I mean, why would they ever be friends or hang out? They are not the friendly type. But it's quickly revealed within a couple of pages that the actual Wolverine is sort of trapped with Sabretooth's mind. It's trapped inside of Sabretooth's like comatose body.
Yeah, because he was going skiing, and then this new mutant got a hold of him named Miss Who or Miss Ho. I don't actually know how to pronounce it.
I think it's Who.
I think it's Who.
Yeah.
She has one appearance.
You don't really see her. You see like the back of her head.
She has the power of making you do a face-off.
Right. Yeah. And Sabretooth has sought her out so that they can do this face-off, so that he can gain access to Warren Worthington's super secret test lab that even Warren Worthington doesn't know about, because it does look like they are working on a new version of Forge's power nullifying gun.
So part of me is not shocked that Warren Worthington III doesn't know every last thing that his company is involved in, because A, he's really bad at being a CEO because he's never there, and B, he's kind of dumb. And if they were keeping that from him, then maybe they were keeping, like bunny ranches from him and other things that you will learn Warren Worthington's company was involved in, but Warren Worthington III had no idea of. Hey, do you remember how Warren Worthington III once made Enol the CEO of his company?
Yeah, just for kicks. Wasn't that when he was like a reborn angel, though?
Yeah.
I think he was going through a psychotic break at that point, which is often for Warren Worthington III.
Right now, he's actually in one of his more lucid moments.
Yeah.
He's
we
saying,
don't see him that much, but
I'm still blue, but it's fine. There is a very interesting thing where Wolverine gives him the same talk that he gives Nightcrawler in that nice classic X-Men story.
Oh, yeah.
Except for it's not Wolverine, it's Sabretooth.
Right.
And then I'm like, Sabretooth, you don't... Mutants as a species, you don't care about historically. Like,
Nope.
You're not mutant and proud. That's not you. Why are you doing this to make the point? And it's because Terry Kavanagh he wanted to make a point about Warren and all this stuff, but it seems weird coming from the Sabretooth man.
Yeah, it's also odd that, I mean, I guess I understand why Sabretooth is so interested in getting rid of this neutralizer, right? Because it's
a Mystique plot. It's not a Sabretooth plot.
It is more of a Mystique plot, but it is still a threat to Sabretooth. But I agree.
Mystique would also be much better at doing a face-off. That's her entire power, is doing a face-off.
So this does result
in a one-sided face-off, a half face-off.
Yes. This does result in Warren eventually, as Wolverine and Sabretooth brawl, Warren blows up it's a neutralizer, but it's also just like a giant egg, which is weird. And Warren blows it up with I guess an AK-47. Like, he basically just has an automatic weapon and blows it up.
Why did they not give him a rocket launcher like we all think the cover of X-Men 1 is, when it's really just a steel pipe?
Oh boy, gotta give that boy a bazooka, right?
Give him a bazooka.
Yeah. So the actual payoff for the face-off, it's not really all that exciting, honestly. Like, it's really just a means of getting Wolverine into this room, and then they fight. So then they get switched back, and that's it.
I get why it's an X-Men Unlimited story, and credit to Terry Kavanagh. He's trying to do interesting things with this. I don't think Sabretooth is the vehicle with which you can effectively do the things that you're trying to do with this story. Also, wasn't Sabretooth like super on X Factor Underground at this point?
the timeline of X-Men
Night-
Unlimited issues is never really concrete. Like it doesn't need to match up with the rest of continuity. So who knows when this took place?
I know exactly when this took place. It took place the month that it came out. Now I'm really
Okay.
curious. Like, listen, I understand that not everything's happening concurrently, but like in the general scheme of things, this was coming out around X Factor times.
Yeah.
Just seems
My
odd
recollection of this book in general is that when it started, it seemed to be a little bit more interwoven with the books that were coming out concurrently, but then it just kind of was like, yeah, here's some random stuff that's happening.
Yeah, it never knows when it wants to be, and that's a big issue with this book.
Not loving Tom Lyle's art, especially when our characters are for some reason wearing like skiing outfits.
Why is the coloring so bad on this?
Yeah, there's some really bad coloring. There's like a couple pages where Wolverine is just blue. I don't know why.
I thought that was like a stylistic choice, and then
like
it wasn't.
Flashback. Yeah, but it's not.
It's absolutely not. It's so freaking wild.
Yeah.
I don't get this book, my man.
This is not as good as Faceoff the movie, just for the record. So if you were still thinking
less
about
doves
seeing
than I was expecting.
No doves. Yeah. No. There's only
there are a lot of doves in Faceoff. Like I'm not incorrect on that, right?
No, that's John Woo's like signature thing is the floating the flying doves in slow-mo as shootouts. Though the birds never seem to get shot, so
birds are a very small target. This is
bland.
It's bland. The only novelty is, man, it is really weird that X-Men immediately stole from Faceoff.
Yeah.
I know it was a big movie, but the speed with which they got out a Faceoff parody issue?
Well, and we did not mention that it literally says it on the cover. It says Wolverine and Sabretooth face off. Like it's on the cover.
Now that I say this out loud, how much of that do we think was they had this issue like going and then they're like, oh, well, this is just great marketing that we could throw on the cover real quick. It's like,
it's
now we have a word for this. It's doing a face-off.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not like a unique story, especially in superhero comics.
No, it could very well have been a body swap issue that was already planned, and then they were like, ha, some clever marketing. Or maybe Terry Kavanagh just was like really up on his Entertainment Weekly and his Empire magazine in the 90s and like knew it was coming out. Just strong plan there.
Maybe.
Unfortunately, weak book.
Listen, it's a Terry Kavanagh comic. So, Terry Kavanagh, the architect behind the long run of X-Men. Speaking of which, Adam, we have a list. Did you know that?
We sure do. Yeah, big one.
A 723 story list, all X-Men stories. All of these are X-Men stories and nothing else.
That's right.
There's no argument to be had. We definitely didn't spend 20 minutes on the phone earlier today being like, does this count as an X-Men story? And then we said, yeah, it does, because Peter Corbeau shows up. Yo, guys, will get to that one in the spring.
Get
there's 723 stories on this list on our road to 800. They're ranked from best to worst. House of X Powers of 10 is at 1. Giant Size X-Men number 1 is at 100. At number 200 is Generation X Underground Special. Number 300 is Gambit Volume 1. Number 400 is The Skinning of Souls. Number 500 is Marvel Zombies Halloween. Good for them. Number 600 is X-Men number 3, Beware the Blob. Number 700 on our list is X Factor Multiple Birth. And the Draco is right there at the bottom.
Yowza. I think we're definitely below that Marvel Zombies issue at 500.
We are.
Worse than X-Men 3, Beware of the Blob at 600?
I mean, we're in interesting territory is where we're at. Here's what I'd say. 613 is Sabretooth Mystique from their X Factor days.
Yeah.
It's around there.
Yeah.
It's that level.
I would say that's better, though. At least art-wise,
I didn't like the art as much as you, but I understand it. Rise of Apocalypse at 615 is better than this. Infinites of Evil from X-Men is better than this.
Wow.
Oof. Night of Terra at 625.
would still rather look at Night of Terror than read this one again.
Night of Terror is the sequel, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because Reign of Terror. Yeah, Night of Terror is the sequel with Jan Duursema that just doesn't do what you want it to. Is this better than Wolverine 49? Better to give?
I think this is because I really don't like the X-Men and Weapon X noirs at 630 and 631.
Fair enough.
So I'm stuck on 629, which is Marvel Comics Presents Volume 3, 1-9, Wolverine the Vigil.
The Vigil sucks.
Yeah, but I think the Vigil may suck more than this.
Is it better or worse than that Nightcrawler story with the Bamfs, Night of the Bamfs, that just isn't what we want it to be?
I like Night of the Bamfs, the first issue, better than this. Not the second issue.
629 it is, my friend.
Boom.
It's X-Men Unlimited 17. We
All
only
right.
have 2 X-Men Unlimited stories on here.
Yeah, it's definitely a library we need to explore a little bit more.
We got to go back to that because we're running. I joke about us saying we're running out of comics. We're not.
No,
so
by
many.
no means. Speaking of which, there's another like wellspring of comics we really haven't touched that much of, and that's the Silver Age. So what's the double feature on our films here today?
Well, first we have John Woo's Faceoff.
Right.
And then we have the classic Boris Karloff Frankenstein in X-Men number 40.
The Mark of the Monster.
I don't know who directed the Frankenstein movie that Boris Karloff was in, folks.
I will look that up as you describe this particular funny book.
So this is a Roy Thomas Don Heck. George Tuska is doing those inks. This one, it's a very generic X-Men story. They have just gotten their new costumes at the end of the Factor 3 event. So Roy has finished up his big ongoing arc. Someday we'll talk about Factor 3. Not
Yes.
soon, but someday. But that's a not insignificant amount of X-Men that they're trying to do. And then right after this, they're going to completely change the book and have the death of Professor X and try and take the team in a different direction. And this is stuck in the middle there. This says on the cover, the X-Men meet Frankenstein. Enough said.
Well, that's just scratching the surface here, folks. I looked it up. The director was James Whale of the 1931 Frankenstein. So Frankenstein's monster.
Frankenstein was Victor Frankenstein, the doctor who created him, right?
Yes, and
that's what we know about Frankenstein, is that he was created by a doctor in a lightning storm and said, "It's alive!"
Yes, but Professor X has his own ideas about Mary Shelley's novel, namely, it was real. Or Mary Shelley based her book on real events, I guess.
Mary Shelley based her book on the fact that there was a dude that looked like a Frankenstein.
Huge insult to Mary Shelley, by the way. Like Professor X. That's
Professor
slander.
X, noted misogynist.
Oh my god. The number of times that Jean is referred to as female, woman, or girl in this issue is just so obnoxious. I hate it.
Roy Thomas sure was Stan Lee's protege.
Whew.
It's rough.
So it's implied by Professor X, though he doesn't seem to have any evidence of this whatsoever. He
read Frankenstein's monster's mind. Thank you very much. That's how he knows this. Which becomes very confusing with the next sentence you're about to say. So I want you to say it.
Is that Dr. Frankenstein may or may not have been a mutant, but Frankenstein's monster is not a reassemblage of like corpses reanimated by lightning. He's what, Zach?
He's an alien robot, which does throw his Dr. Frankenstein is a mutant theory out the window. Also throws the how did he read the robot's mind theory out the window.
Right. He's an android of some kind. And we recognize that he doesn't have a traditional mind to speak of. But we know that he is real because explorers have found him in the ice, just as he might have been after the end of the actual novel. So he has been thawed out by some moron at what museum is this? Natural History Museum?
Museum of Science.
I don't know. Place where you wouldn't thaw out a giant robot from
It's the City Museum of New York.
Okay. And he begins to wreak havoc. He does not like the X-Men, that's for sure.
He just oddly hates the X-Men out of seemingly nowhere.
Doesn't like their costumes. Really against the costumes.
It's just so much of this is so weird. And I
Frankenstein
do not...
has laser eyes that are that are more powerful than Cyclops's, apparently.
Frankenstein's monster does have laser eyes. So the X-Men fight him on a ship and then he blows up. That's what happens. This is a bad story. There's nothing to explain. Here's what's weird, though. You know that all of this is not actually true because Dr. Victor Frankenstein is a character in the Marvel Universe and did create a Frankenstein's monster, just like Mary Shelley said he did, because Marvel is a world where all stories are true.
And we also, have to remember that Dr. Frankenstein was the great-grandfather of
Maximilian Frankenstein.
Yeah. So, we know this is part of Marvel continuity, and yet here is Robot Frankenstein.
It sucks.
I enjoyed this quite a bit, Zach. This is
did you
really
enjoy reading
fun.
it, or did you enjoy like, oh man, this is a dumb comic?
Both, because it is very dumb, and every couple issues something really, really weird happened, and I was like, why? What is this? I mean, because it's so far out of like even what we think of X-Men now. You know what I mean? The opening sequence with the Danger Room is basically a cylinder with like, I guess some force beams in it. And, by the time we get to I guess Cyclops kind of runs out of force beam. And then, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. That's why he doesn't like costumes. He doesn't like costumes because the people who created him in outer space had colorful space uniforms, like
right.
Like that's crazy.
Here's the thing: this is a 1950s monster comic. Only it's not drawn by Jack Kirby or Steve Ditko, and it's not written by Stan Lee, so it's worse than all of that.
Oh, it's not well done by any stretch.
It's like you look at this and you're like, okay, it makes sense why this was the one they canceled. It makes sense why X-Men stopped being a going concern for Marvel, because this was the trash garbage they were putting out.
Yeah. There are a couple of really funny moments in here, like when they're like, well, Xavier, how'd you figure this out? He's like, well, I was I was doing mental exercises.
It's none of the humor in this is intentional.
No.
And that's the problem. 60s comics are... Actually, no. 60s comics tend to be pretty good. This particular run of X-Men is all bad.
Yeah. It's pretty terrible. But I enjoyed reading it. So there, like you said, there's not a lot to get into here. Like, it's Frankenstein's a robot. They get beat up by the robot and then they blow him up. And great. Cool.
This is not as good as number 600, X-Men number 3, Beware the Blob.
No. I think we're done. I don't know if this is as bad as that first story we read, though. I think this is a weird curio, and I think there's something to enjoy here.
I will not put it a single spot higher than 626 Spider-Man Storm and Power Man Smokescreen, a comic that is better than this.
I would agree.
That is only 2 spots above the Faceoff comic. That is a hard line in the sand I am drawing. This is oddly the exact right spot for it, though.
I think so, because right below that is Wolverine Volume 3, 36 to 40, Origins and Endings.
Okay, wait, hold on. Do we really think that this is better than Amazing Spider-Man 420, #BlazeIt?
Ooh, that's tough. Yeah. No, maybe we need to go further down.
I don't like this comic at all.
I don't think you're giving it enough credit as just
not
being something like extremely silly from its time. Like, I certainly think it's better than 637 X-Men Hidden Years 6 to 7. So
Then
maybe
we're putting it right under.
There we
We're
go.
putting it right there because that's right under X-Men,
Amazing Spider-Man 420.
420, My Christmas with Nate Gray.
Perfect. So Universal Monsters, Faceoff. What is this last one, Zach? Because I think this one might be a book that our listeners may not have read before.
Adam, this next comic you could only get by purchasing a movie.
Wow. Whoa. Okay.
Purchasing a Stan Lee collector edition version of everyone's favorite film, X-Men: The Last Stand.
Oh, I remember that movie. That was the movie that I sat through 20 minutes of, and then the sound went out, and I had to leave the theater because they couldn't figure it out.
I sat through most of X-Men 2000 with the sound working, and then in the climactic scene with Rogue letting Wolverine absorb her powers to live or whatever, or Wolverine letting Rogue absorb her powers to live on top of the Statue of Liberty, the sound went out.
Gosh golly. Wouldn't you know it? That's a very strange coincidence. But movie theaters, not always what they are today,
And what they are places where there is sound most of the time, and what comic books are places that don't have sound. But I want all of you to record the sounds that you make when I tell you that there is a comic that is credited to Stan Lee, Ron Lim, Ben Oliver, Ron Frenz, Klaus Jensen, Sean Chen, John Romita Jr., Pascal Ferry, Leinil Francis Yu, and Howard Chaykin, that you could get in a DVD box set of X-Men: The Last Stand.
Absolutely bonkers. I had heard about this. You've told me about this many times, and I have yet to actually read it until we got to this episode. And by golly, it's real. It exists. And let's get into it, because this story is about Stan Lee himself being visited by Professor X and Magneto for some reason.
Yes. So Stan Lee wrote this comic.
Sure he did.
And that is how it is credited. We normally don't shout out editors, but I would like to shout out editor Ralph Macchio, who edited this book, and that's all he did, I'm sure. What we get is Stanley Lieber. You know him from pop culture.
Sure.
Such hits as, remember, this is 2006. So while Stan Lee has made cameos, they were cameos for people who knew who Stan Lee was from comics and not from making cameos in Marvel movies.
Right.
Stan Lee is on his terrace looking busy to impress his wife. When the X-Jet shows up and Professor X and Magneto start hanging out, and they're like, wait, why is Magneto and Professor X hanging out? And then immediately Stan Lee starts reciting X-Men history. He's like, oh my gosh, in Uncanny 150, he sunk the Leningrad. And I'm like, okay, Stan, I know you didn't read that comic, but let's go.
And they also begin to immediately start insulting Stan Lee. They have no time or patience for this blabbermouth.
Page upon page of the comic book characters Magneto and Charles Xavier negging Stan Lee. When I tell you that they gave this away with a terrible movie, I am not kidding. This is a real thing. You can get it on eBay for $3.
It does involve Magneto taking Stan Lee's flip phone from his pocket with his magnet powers and turning it into a muzzle that he puts around Stan Lee so Stan Lee can't talk.
Hey, Adam, I know it's been a while since you and I have touched a flip phone. Do you remember them being made out of metal?
I remember them being made more out of plastic, but Magneto's powers know no bounds. So
hold on, I feel like polymers are the one balance he definitely has.
Listen, doesn't matter. It's colored silver in this particular case. It's what it is. And from this point on, Professor X and Magneto begin to take Stan Lee on a journey through the X-Men's history.
They do a Christmas Carol to him.
Pretty much, yeah.
They're
Yeah,
like,
they
this
take
is
him-
you, Stan Lee.
Except, all right, so the idea here being that Stan Lee had a hand in the X-Men's history past the Silver Age, because once we get past the Silver Age, we are now going through, as Zach mentioned, there's a really cool roster of collaborating artists on this, and we are being introduced to Days of Future Past, the Mutant Massacre, Onslaught, Grant Morrison's new X-Men. Like, okay, Stan Lee did not have anything to do with any of that, but okay.
It's jumping through all this history of the X-Men and like how Stan Lee made all these things, because Stan Lee, for right, wrong, or indifferent. I mean, there's people today who think that Stan Lee was writing all of the Marvel comics until he died, instead of Stan Lee stopped writing most comics in 1970 and
Right.
then tried to make films a thing for a while and failed miserably. And then oddly, it worked out anyway.
Yeah, in his lifetime. So
Yeah, listen,
yes.
he was vindicated in like these should make great movies.
He wasn't wrong. He was several decades too early on that pitch. So
Also, Stan Lee was probably bad at pitching those movies.
who knows? God knows, right?
He spent a lot of time in what we have to show for it. What's the best thing that we have to show for Stan Lee's tenure of pitching Marvel stuff out in Hollywood? The fact that Jessica Walters played Clea in a made-for-TV Doctor Strange movie.
I was going to say Dolph Lundgren Punisher, but you know,
I've never seen the Dolph Lundgren Punisher.
Oh, really? You should. You've got a double feature now. You've got to watch Face Off, and you really should watch, because where else can you see Dolph Lundgren as Punisher steering a school bus full of children away from like ninjas?
This sounds like every Dolph Lundgren VHS movie, just without the IP of being Punisher.
I think you will have some fun with it. Is it also kind of racist? Sure.
Oh, yes.
But I mean,
again, Dolph Lundgren VHS.
Yeah, just you keep the context in mind. Anyway, so the reason that Charles and Eric have been dragging Stan Lee through this history is for the very simple reason that they are tired and would like a vacation. And of course, Stan Lee, being the mastermind of the Marvel Universe that he is, he opens up his laptop and spirits both of them away to a lovely vacation, only to close this issue out by saying that he is going to send a threat to them. So what is it? An invasion from another
dimension.
So there you go.
Listen, I think the gag's cute. I think like you get to the point they're like, dude, we're really tired. Can you give us a vacation? Here's what I don't understand, Adam.
Yeah, please.
I've watched the Fox cinematic X-Men events.
Yeah.
They were very important to my development as a fan of the X-Men.
Sure. Understandably.
There's a few things in those movies, especially in the first three, that I don't remember.
Such as?
Part of any of the Silver Age X-Men. Days of Future Past. Well, except for that one shout out in the cold open, Danger Room cold open of X-Men The Last Stand.
Best part of the movie.
It's
terrible.
I'm trying to think if it is a terrible movie. I'm trying to think if that is the best part of the movie.
It's a pretty good opening.
That opening's pretty good. Hugh Jackman Wolverine does spend time lighting a cigar off of a burning sentinel, and that rules.
That scene was pretty good.
The Mutant Massacre, Onslaught in Planet X also do not appear. So here's my question. Who is this for?
I had the same question. They name drop Quesada. They name drop Dan Buckley. Who is reading this other than the people that made it and going, this is funny?
I mean, you want the terrible? Yeah, it's us 16 years later, Adam.
Right. But you are absolutely right that it doesn't make a lot of sense for your average superhero movie consumer at this point, because they're probably not reading these books and are
just a regular person. An average superhero movie consumer, especially in 2006, was just a person who wanted to see an action movie.
Sure. Now,
that was it.
That said, I want to applaud the effort Why? Because there really doesn't seem to be any effort whatsoever anymore of drawing readers back to the books, because what are the books other than just an IP farm for the eventual movies that get up on the screen, right? So
We're
at
making fun
least
of this.
I'm going to just
You go.
finish my thought
I'm
real
sorry.
quick.
I'm sorry.
At least there's an effort here to say, okay, if you like these characters, here's some hints of some other things. I just wish this book does not really give you any suggestions on like where to find that stuff, like what issues they might be or what.
To
Where do I
be
read it?
fair, and I don't know which ones are included in this, but there are a couple of X-Men comics included in the actual like reprints. I
Oh,
believe there's
right.
3
Yeah.
reprints included in this. So it's like a thicker insert.
Mhm.
I don't have it in front of me. How did I read these comics? I'll never tell.
Mine's
It's
in the
actually
mail.
a lot. It's actually a lot harder than you think to find this comic.
Yeah, I
That's
could
how
not
I
find
did
it, and I'm very excited because I believe I have a copy coming in the mail.
I'm
So
again $4 on eBay. I'm gonna get that DVD soon.
it's what we call an investment, Zach.
I will say, in the same way that you enjoyed X-Men Meet Frankenstein, enough said,
Yeah,
I enjoyed this comic so much. It is people making fun of Stan Lee, which I think is delightful.
always.
Stan Lee was a human with the positives and negatives that come with that. And I think given his mythic status, it's really funny to see him poking fun at himself, question mark. But more fun to see the comic book character best friends Magneto and Charles Xavier making fun of him.
Yes, absolutely.
Great art.
Even if it doesn't really sound like those characters or whatever this is, but I think it's a lot of fun. It's in good humor. If Stanley was the actual architect of this and it wasn't just put together by an editor, who knows? But
I'm sure Stan Lee did a dialogue pass.
that sounds great.
I am 100% sure Stan Lee did a dialogue pass. He said, "Yep, that sounds like me." True believer.
So it's fun.
Excelsior.
I also think it's one of those
Enough
things.
said.
Got any more?
I'm done.
Got any more?
I'm done. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm done.
I mean, he's got some phrases. I
Face
think
front. I forgot one. Okay, now
that
I think
was
I
pretty
am
good.
done.
You nailed the voice on that last one. That was good. I think this is one of those oddities, like X-Men at the Texas State Fair, that X-Men fans. I don't know. I know I love this kind of stuff where there's just
Adam,
these
I don't know if
obscure
X-Men
things.
fans love this because they don't know it exists. I know part of what I wanted this podcast to be since its inception is an opportunity for us to talk about dumb stuff like this. I've been waiting to talk about this specific comic for some time now.
I think we've been talking about this comic since we started doing the show.
I
feel like we've been mentioning this. Like, at some point, we need to cover this one, and this was finally the opportunity.
You know what? We were there with the Wizard of the Coast trading card game tie-in.
Yeah.
What we haven't. The next milestone that we have to make organically work is, of course,
the TV guide.
The TV guide comic that Chris Claremont and Salvador Larroca did. That one's got to happen sooner or later.
Well, we just did a movie episode, so maybe we'll do a TV episode at some point.
No, because what are we going to do? Talk about The Gifted? Forget about it.
Dude, I don't know.
We've already done Mutant X. Like, we already did that bit.
I'm just saying, there's opportunities. I'm not saying it's on the calendar. It's just...
They did put all of X-Men Adventures onto the app recently. So
I have some trade paperbacks of those. They're fun.
I've already seen the TV show. I don't need to watch them.
Yeah, but you get that Andy Wildman art, man. It's
okay, but I've also read the manga adaptation of the first season.
I know.
Which you get weird.
Love the manga.
Guys, there's some weird X-Men comics. Oh, we got to do another manga episode.
That'd be great.
We got to do that Raina Telgemeier X-Men. People think...
Wait, Zach,
must think we're making jokes up.
Zach, we haven't ranked this. We're just like blabbing. We have not put this on the list. We need to put this on the list.
Okay, so House of X Powers of 10 is at number 1. And I'm just saying.
This
isn't as good.
I think this is worse than Skinning of Souls at 400.
I would actually... Is the Skinning of Souls good?
It's better than this.
Okay, because right under that is the X Babies miniseries.
Yeah.
A miniseries that isn't as good as you want it to be.
That's true. That's true.
Okay, at 396 is X Factor Forever. That's just a bit up from Skinning of Souls, and this isn't as good as X Factor Forever.
No, it's not.
I would, if I had my druthers, I would put it at the new 398 between Deadpool Volume 2 and Uncanny X-Men Breaking Point, the Kieran Gillen arc.
Yeah,
because
that's fine.
Yeah, I think it's better than Skinning of Souls, but I can appreciate why you would say it's not.
I think that's a great spot for it. It's for what it might lack in artistic integrity. It is a wonderful oddity that is the kind of stuff that we love for this show.
It's got John Romita Jr. drawing the Mutant Massacre again. I call that artistic integrity out the wazoo.
Kind of wild that Sabretooth is just rocking a beard in that 2-page spread for some reason. I don't know why.
Tyler Mane Sabretooth didn't have a beard, right?
Yeah, I think he might have.
I know he had. He had
a
mustache. Yeah, he has stubble. Well, it depends on the scene. Yeah, he has a short beard. He has a really short beard.
He does have a little something.
He's got a little something. That's a weird movie.
That was great. Yeah, that's a weird movie, man. Ray Park.
Oh,
Toad.
I kind of want to watch all those again. I understand that people don't like them, and there's mitigating factors around them in general. Fair enough. I already own the DVDs. I might as well. Or, no, let's be honest. I might as well pop on that Disney Plus subscription and just go through.
Well, that we've never ranked them because we only do comics on this show, but
we haven't done the adaptations of the movies.
Oh, that's true.
We've not done any of those. And the Chuck Austin X2 Nightcrawler adaptation, one of the wildest unreported on Chuck Austin stories.
It'll end up on the show eventually.
Adam, do you think that story still has the incest angle? Because I tell you, it does.
Good God. What was Chuck Austin? What was going on in that man's brain?
So much.
Zach,
this was a fun episode.
I'm out of Twizzlers. I think I got to run to the bathroom, man. We've been staring at the screen too long.
Yeah, let's wrap this one up so that we can spoiler alert, everyone, literally do this again. So if you wonder why next week's episode may be loose, it's because this one started that way and it just keeps on trucking. Want to thank JW McCormick for being a patron, supporting everything we do at Comics XF. It's a lot of fun. It's great. We just put up our best of 2022 list. Go check that out. I think there's some really excellent picks that you may have missed throughout this year on there. I know there's a few things that I didn't get a chance to read that are now top of my list to go check out.
Yeah.
ComicsXF.com exists. Patreon.com/ComicsXF. There's other links, I'm sure. Adam, what do you got going on?
Folks can always follow me on Instagram at adam.rec. And I mentioned it last episode, but I had a piece come out on Gatecrashers about the movie Duel. So go check that out. I also did a blurb for the best comics of 2022 for Comics XF. So go check that out. And Zach, what are we going to be talking about in, for us, several minutes, but for our listeners next week?
Politics.
Politics? How dare you?
Don't play this one at the dinner table, folks. Until then, guys, this has been Battle of the Atom. We hope you survived the experience.
Get it!